All right, guys. So this podcast is going to go into some of the actual fitnessing that we're doing, the macrocycles, the programming, and what you guys are actually going to be doing when you come into class. Now, obviously, that's a small part of what we do, and we want to continue to keep the nutrition focus and the recovery focus for a lot of you guys, and make sure that if your main focus is to improve your blood tests, be happy and healthy, and do those things, really what you guys need to be focused on is that we're going to continue to focus on good, high quality movements that are going to be really good for you to both build lean muscle mass and improve your cardiovascular systems, and then also improve your heart health along those same lines. What that's going to get you is this full, well-rounded, robust fitness that is going to help you stave off disease and keep the doctor away and start to look better and feel better and have more confidence and all those great things. And that's always going to be our first and foremost focus. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to get into the weeds a little bit in terms of kind of nerding out for our cycles. And, the reason is some of the people who have done this for, 4, 5, 6 years, they like to understand kind of what they're going to be doing coming up, what they can look forward to diving into and improving, and, how they can focus on maybe raising their numbers just a little bit and getting to kind of that next tier. But we want to still make sure that we focus for those people on movement quality. That still needs to be your main focus. If you've been doing CrossFit for 4, 5, 6 years now, you should have very perfect movement quality, very high quality, Olympic liftings, movements and skills, and, really rock solid kips and some of those different things. And, if we haven't gotten there, we need to start looking at maybe what our foundation is built off of, and ensure that we have the right mindset, and ensure that we, have a good nutritional focus, and that our movement is really high quality, the base foundations, a good air squat and all those things, and then start to work our way up into CrossFit, which is kind of the top of the pyramid, right? It's not our foundation. And so understanding that, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. And if you guys find it interesting and you enjoy knowing about the cycles and kind of what's coming up for class, you guys should let me know so I can keep doing them. Thanks.
All right, guys. So we're going to try a video podcast here and see how it goes. All right, but we're going to talk about cycle 1 today and let you guys in a little bit on some of the things that we are going to be aiming to improve over the next 2 months or so. This cycle is going to take us from April 30th all the way up until about 4th of July time. I'm going to put that 4th of July, even though 4th of July falls in the middle of the week this year, which kind of sucks, but I'm going to put that as kind of our main end point there. When we do MRF that week, we'll kind of do some other test outs on that Monday, Tuesday, and then after MRF, we'll probably start into our deload week. That'll actually work pretty well. So basically the way that'll work is Wednesday will probably be MRF on the 4th of July. Thursday, Friday, Saturday will probably be a little bit of a deload. Let your bodies relax after a tough cycle. Sunday, you guys can rest fully, and then we can come back on Monday and start into cycle 2. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, maybe you're newer, we run things on macrocycles based a little bit around the open. And typically our big cycle that starts after the open has a lot to do with strengthening our foundational movements and our foundational kind of cardiovascular pieces. So our tests that we're going to go after this year are going to have a little bit longer pieces than we normally have. So we're going to have Morrison, which we're actually going to do this Friday, and that's going to be kind of the beginning of some of our tests. And then we're going to have Fran, which I believe will be sometime next week. And then we'll do 3 rep max and 5 rep max push press. So 3 rep max back squat, 5 rep max push press. Those are going to be our main lifts that we're going to kind of focus on. And again, we're trying to think about raising our raw strength levels so that when we start to go later in the season and we start to do some of our speed strength stuff, so things like snatches, cleans, and jerks, we're going to have a little bit better base of raw strength in the shoulders, in the hips, and in the legs. We're also going to do a little bit of deadlifting in this cycle, maybe a little bit more than we have been. And so that'll kind of be in there, but we're not going to test that quite yet. Then the big ones, guys, that we're going to focus on, we're going to keep focusing on that 1 mile run. We already saw some pretty crazy PRs. We're going to test this out right before MRF, the week before, and that'll be kind of our 2nd mile test for the year, and then we'll also do one kind of at the end of the season. But we're going to continue to kind of juice up that running a little bit, and then that should feel like you guys are really prepared for MRF in terms of volume, and hopefully you guys have enough juice left for that 2nd mile. And then max push-ups. So I know a lot of you guys are super jacked up about getting better at your push-ups. People either love or hate push-ups, but our hope is to strengthen the plank position and then make sure that as we start to lower into that full range of motion, we have really nice stability throughout the shoulder. Kind of goes hand in hand with building some raw strength with the push press. And we're basically just going to try to get some of those pressing muscles a little stronger. We've just come off a big strict pull-up and pulling cycle. And so we've been doing tons and tons of that. We're going to back off just a little bit on that and maybe start to work a little bit more some of the kipping fundamentals so that we feel ready again for Murph, for the unknowns and those kinds of things. And then we're also going to work on our unbroken toes to bar, and we're going to do a lot of different tests inside of the toe to bar realm. So we're going to do some Tabata toes to bar, some max unbroken. We'll do some time constrained ones, so maybe max toes to bar in 2 minutes. And you guys have a lot of different things that you can PR and test inside of that, and we'll do those workouts on kind of a cycle. So there'll be kind of a constant test in, test out with the toes to bar, just looking to get you guys to push just a couple reps past and improve those toes to bar a little bit. And then obviously inside of this time domain over the next 8 or 9 weeks, we also have the unknowns on Memorial Day weekend, and then we also have Murph. So those are 2 45-minute plus or minus, depending on how good you are at them, workouts, and they fall right into the middle of this cycle, okay? So a couple things are going to be really important. All right, number one, like I said, Murph ends the cycle, so you guys should be able to recover really well around that. My hope is that you guys can come in the next day after Murph and we'll have a nice recovery day. Same thing's going to go for the unknowns. That happens on Monday of Memorial Day. And after that, we'll probably have a couple down days, just a little bit. We'll do some form and technique work, but we won't really continue to blast you throughout the Tuesday and Wednesday following the unknowns. But really what becomes super important there, guys, is making sure that we recover around those longer hero workouts so that when we come back into training, we're not overstressed and then we are going to continue to put more stress on the system, okay? It's really important for us to understand and continue to keep in the front of our mind what exercise is, right? We have to put a stress on the system, okay? The unknowns is certainly going to do that. It's going to stress you, all right, quite a bit. And then we have to recover from that stress to allow the adaptations in our body, chemically, muscle growth, better oxygen capacity in our lungs, better use of the chemicals and oxygen and all those things to our blood, better blood flow and all those things. We need to make sure that we allow enough time for that to set in and allow our body to change and recover from those, okay? So as we start to get into some of those longer hero workouts, and then when we test out Morrison, that's a little bit shorter. It's maybe 25 to 30 minutes. You guys can start to feel like you are recovering from the long ones. And then this is a really cool kind of well-rounded picture here, right? We want to increase our raw strength numbers, but at the same time, if we can improve some 45-minute workouts, a 30-minute workout, and then also improve our mile run and some of our gymnastics, you are really expanding the box and getting quite a bit better at your full, well-rounded fitness. And that's really what we want to see here. So this is going to be kind of some of the tests. We're going to talk a little bit about how structure and breakdown will go into this cycle. All right, guys, so when we break down the week, we're going to be squatting on Monday and Tuesday, and that'll kind of alternate back and forth each week, right? So week 1, we will squat on a Monday. Week 2, we will squat on a Tuesday. Week 3, we'll go back to Monday. Week 4, we'll go back to Tuesday, and we'll alternate those back and forth. Reason why we do that, guys, is we want to make sure that we get compliance with that, and Monday and Tuesday are our most attended days, okay? When we start to look at press, that's going to be our secondary lifting focus. That's going to alternate between Wednesday and Friday, okay? So Wednesday week 1 we'll press, Friday week 2 we'll press, and so on, okay? Again, those are going to be our 3rd and 4th most attended days. So I want to make sure that we get as many people to hit those days as possible. And if you guys can stay with that and you really are focused on making sure that you guys get stronger, you want to make sure that you hit every single one of those days. Squats are going to be a little bit of a building capacity, so we're going to start pretty high volume, pretty high rep, and then it'll start to kind of tier down as we go. For a lot of you guys who have taken a little bit of time off of squatting heavy, as we always do around open season, this is going to be a little bit of a shock to the system when we first start, and then after about 3-4 weeks, you guys will get back into the swing of things and feel pretty good. And then same thing's going to go on the press days. In terms of the second portion of the day, or what we would call our Metcon portion of the day, we're going to be doing some sprints at least once a week, and that's not going to necessarily be running sprints. It might be So what we really want to think about with the sprints, guys, is making sure that we maximize our intensity on those days, okay? You're going to know when you see a sprint day because it's going to be something like, you know, max thrusters with 75 pounds in 30 seconds, rest 1 minute, okay? So it's going to be really, really short, really high intensity time domains, and we really want to maximize how hard we're pushing ourselves in those, knowing that we're going to get the rest, okay? And that's going to be true for all sprints, but this is going to be something that's going to be, the sprint workouts on this are going to be a little bit more intense because we're not going to be doing quite as many of them in a week. For the couplets, triplets, okay, again, that's always going to be the base of CrossFit, right? That should be the majority of your workouts in a week, and for us, that's going to be 3 times a week. And so that's going to be falling inside of that 6 and 12 minute time domain, and we're going to be doing those 3 times a week. So you can expect a lot of the running to fall in there, a lot of the Fran type stuff to work in there, a lot of our toe to bar work to fall into that, and then making sure, obviously, that we're still hitting on some of our smaller things. A lot of you guys will be happy to hear that we'll take a couple steps back on wall balls during this cycle. Double unders, we might take a little shift back on. We might do some jump roping in and around running to build some calf endurance and things like that. But for the most part, we're going to stick kind of to what we're working on. All right. We've done a ton of those skills, done a lot of that stuff over the open cycle. We always crush a ton of double unders, a ton of wall balls leading up to and throughout that open cycle. So we're going to back off just slightly on those, and that'll probably be a welcome switch for some of you guys. And then we're going to go long once a week, okay? Long being 20, 25 minutes plus, where you're going to come in, and for the most part, we're going to get loose. We're going to warm up a little bit, and then we're going to go into our piece, okay? A lot of that's going to be starting to get you guys prepared for the unknowns and for Murphs, so that's not a shock to your system, so we don't break down and we're not, you know, crushed by that 45-minute piece. We're used to going longer. We feel comfortable inside of that time domain, and then we're also going to run 1 to 2 times a week, okay? The lifting stuff in and around the squats and presses, okay? What's going to be probably typical, if we squat on Monday, we'll probably do some sort of a power movement. So that might be power clean, that might be power snatch, that might be deadlift, and we're going to do that on the opposite days. And then for the pressing cycle, on the opposite days, so let's say we press on Wednesday, then Friday's probably going to be some push-up work with some single leg work mixed with it. So you can expect to do some lunging and then supersetting that with some push-ups, okay? So that's going to be pretty typical for this cycle. You know, a lot of people, when we get into this cycle, they maybe don't understand the purpose of why days are so similar as we start to look over from a week to week. You guys are used to a big variety, right? When we do the open cycle, we really start to switch things up, right? And so we try to give you guys as much variety as physically possible. And that way you guys are kind of prepared for that unknown and unknowable that comes out throughout the open and going into some of the competition season. But as we start to get back into building base fundamentals and structure, what we want to do is we want to be able to work on that one system enough to where we are actually starting to make that adaptation before we start to deload, recover, and then move on to the next cycle, okay? So this one's going to be mostly back squat focused, and we will still do some front squats. Most of that's going to be like we've been doing, kind of where we'll pair together some power cleans mixed with some front squats and things like that. But for the most part, we're going to kind of switch back into focus for back squat and go on that raw strength work. And then I think that's it for the most part. If you guys have any questions on the cycle, I love getting into that. I'm going to wrap things up here talking about where cycle 2, cycle 3, and cycle 4 are going to kind of go for the year. All right, guys. So to wrap things up here, we're going to talk about kind of the bigger picture. So we just talked a lot about cycle 1 and where we're going to be for kind of the 2018 season start, right? And so we talked a little bit about you know, back squat, push press, doing some 1 mile work, and then our push-ups and toes to bar are going to be kind of our gymnastics focus. As we start to move into cycle 2, right, our focus will switch a little bit. We're going to work a lot of overhead stability, okay? So we're going to start to prep for some things like handstand walks, handstand push-ups, and handstand stability. And then we're also going to pair that with doing some snatch work and some snatch balances and some overhead squats and some overhead holds and jerk stability, okay? So think about that as we're building the foundation of good kind of underlying movement So that way when we start to go into cycle 3 and we're going to start doing those things dynamically, right? So we're going to start doing some handstand walks, we're going to start doing some handstand push-ups, we're going to start doing some squat snatches and some heavier jerks. We're going to have that overhead stability, and that shoulder will be ready for that. It's not going to take the brunt for that. And then we're also going to get diving back into some pulling strength. Okay, so we're going to kind of break the pull-up down. We're going to do a bunch of bar row stuff, which for those of you guys who aren't ready for the bar rows and think you're above that, this is going to take you right back down to base level. And you're going to realize that bar rows are a lot harder than pull-ups in some capacities, okay? So we're going to go back down to base level, bar rows, ring rows, and then we're going to start to build up from there and go into some strict pull-ups and start to double up the work on those. That'll pair up really well with the gymnastics pull-up cycle that'll be coming out here. We're going to do a podcast with Jenny here at the end of the week to kind of start to discuss what that's going to look like, and then they're going to go into a muscle-up program right around the time that we kind of go into some more pull-up work. And then we're going to continue to hammer away on running. And then once we get past the 4th of July, guys, that's really where we're going to start to dive into. At that point, you should be conditioned to run, okay? And we're going to start to dive into a little bit more of the running program. And so we're actually going to put together a little run club, little running group. And we're going to get together at the track on, I think Sunday mornings is what I'm planning on right now. And then we're also going to look at doing a couple running workouts in and around Friendship throughout the week. And then also helping you guys understand better what's some running work that we can do while it's like shitty and rainy outside to actually get better at running. So that's going to be the running program that'll come out probably middle of June or so. And then we'll take that through the summer. But class will really start to dive into some of those things. And then you guys could just opt into joining us at the track on Sundays if you wanted to. As we go into cycle 3, we're getting later in the year now, September, November. It's amazing how fast the year goes. We're right back into like open prep season at the end of cycle 3. But cycle 3 is where we do speed strength stuff. So we're going to be doing a lot of cleans. That was last year where we did the squat clean cycle, which was awesome. We'll probably do that again. I was such a big fan of that, where we do the squat cleans paired together with the front squats in those changing cycles. So you do, 1 squat clean plus 5 front squats, and then the next round would be 2 squat cleans plus 4 front squats, and it would ladder like that as we went throughout the weeks. I thought that was a lot of fun. So we'll do that again, and then I'm probably going to think about doing that, and we're going to add some jerks in and around that. And then the speed strength stuff will also carry over, and we'll start to dive into really getting into some of the snatch stuff. So that's where we start to get into a lot more Olympic lifting, and then some of the squat stuff at that point will be like a once a week and maybe take a little bit of a back seat to some of our more powerful lifting, right? So we're trying to build power there. We'll do a lot more like box jump stuff or bounding power jumping movements. Then we start to get into rowing, right? Unfortunately, we're looking like we're becoming Iceland, where we get like 2 months of summer. And so we're right back into September, which means the weather's going to start to suck, and we'll start to really build in on rowing mechanics. Coach Sway, Ashley, has kind of started to look forward into the next year, and I think we're going to start a little bit early with some of the row club stuff, so that as we start getting into the winter months and we start doing a little bit more rowing in class, people feel like they've really got great mechanics for that, and they're really set up for success there. It was amazing watching how well Ashley did with coaching everybody and how much their improvement, I mean, it was amazing. We were seeing seasoned athletes, competitors who had been doing CrossFit for 5-6 years and had done 15 2K tests, PRing by like 20 seconds, which is just nuts. And then we're going to start to really get into some core strength. The core strength pairs in really well with the speed strength stuff, mainly because that's going to start to make sure that the stability that we built up there is set on top of a good foundation, right? If we have a gooey core and we start to snatch or we start to clean, that's going to become your limiting factor. And so we want to make sure that we are doing both some core rehab stuff, but also a little bit more intense and a little bit more difficult core strengthening stuff as we start to get there. And then obviously the Metcon tests and those kinds of things, we usually do Jackie and Helen and Nancy in this middle cycle here. And then as we start to get down to the September cycle, we start doing some open retests, and then we'll do Fran again. For cycle 3, we'll definitely start to get into some of the longer hero type workouts. All right, thanks guys.